Hi everyone, and welcome again to Los Angeles English School. If you don't know me yet, my name's Helen. I'm head teacher here at Los Angeles English School, and welcome to my lesson. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet and you'd like to get notified of all our upcoming webinars and new lessons, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Alright, today guys, we're going to practice IELTS listening section. So again, a quick overview. The listening section is the same for both modules, for academic one and for general one, so you're welcome. So if you are going to take general or academic IELTS, it doesn't matter. So you can practice today with us. And today, because we're going to have a mock test, so I will make it as close as possible to the real listening test. Grab a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil so that you are actually gonna practice, and it's going to be a real practice test. So make sure that you have a sheet of paper and a pen and a pencil. If it happened that you don't have a sheet of paper, you're somewhere on your way to some place, don't worry, you can still work with us and you can type your answers in the chat box. So in this way, you are gonna practice computer-based IELTS. All right, so before we start our practice test, let's go over some main points about listening section. So, quick overview. So, the listening section takes approximately 30 minutes. There are, in general, 4 sections, so it means you will listen to 4 audio recordings, and in general there are 40 questions, so 10 questions for each audio track. So we have 4 sections. The first section is a conversation on a social topic, for example, someone making a booking. The Earlier, it used to be that way that the first there was an example done for you. Now they changed a little bit the process, and like actually nothing has changed too much. It's just you will not have an example answer, so they just eliminated this. Section number 2, a monologue on a social topic, for example, radio report. Section 3, a conversation on a study-based topic, for example, discussion between students. Section 4, a monologue on a study-based topic, for example, a lecture. So students have 10 minutes at the end of the test to transfer their answers onto an answer sheet. The recording is heard once. So now the computer-based IELTS is becoming more and more popular all over the world. So if you're gonna take computer-based IELTS, you won't have 10 minutes at the end of the test. You will have only 2 minutes to check your answers, because you gotta type your answers on the way. So you're listening and you type your answers. Before we actually do this mock test, I'd like to give you a few guidelines. So just before we start, maybe you are new to IELTS and you aren't familiar with it. Just a moment. Yeah, so just a few recommendations for you. So you will be given some time to look through the questions, and you will hear the guidelines. So you have some time to look through questions from 1 to 5, for example. During this time, make sure to be focused and read what you will need to fill in the gaps. So not what you will need to fill in the gaps, sorry, but what information you might need to fill in the gaps. So look through these questions carefully. If you are going to take paper-based IELTS, make sure that you underline key phrases with your pencil. It helps me a lot. So I get more focused when I underline something and I grab a pen and pencil, in our case, and it just makes me much more focused on the task. Unfortunately, if it's computer-based IELTS, you won't have this opportunity to underline key phrases. And to me, this is one of the minuses of the computer-based IELTS. Again, there are some pluses, of course, so you don't need to transfer your answers. You just type everything on the computer. Maybe you feel more comfortable. So they also give enough time to check your answers. But to me, I personally feel more comfortable when I have a real pen and I can underline something for myself. So I just feel much more concentrated. So you look carefully. Also, you need to listen proactively. What does it mean? So listen ahead. So for example, you see by the way, the correct answers will appear in the audio in the same order as in the task. So the order of the answers is exactly the same. So listen proactively. It means if you see, oh, I have just missed this word. So if you have missed an answer, don't stop, don't panic, just go on and don't get stuck on that specific question. So because you will hear the audio only once, no one will repeat it one more time for you. And if you just get stuck, then it will be a disaster. So you will actually lose lots of points. Also make sure that you don't leave a blank. So even if you don't know the correct answer, even if you're not sure, just write down something. So something that you think is possible to write here. Also, you need to look carefully for how many words or numbers they ask you to write in the blanks. So make sure that you read it carefully and you don't exceed the number of the words that you are allowed to write. Then when you're gonna check your answers, make sure that you read the sentences and you make sure that they make sense, so that it's grammatically correct, and you check your spelling as well. So these are just some guidelines. I think these are very important things. All right, guys, if you're ready, let's get down to work. Grab a pen or a pencil and a sheet of paper if you can. And let's go to the actual practice test. Also, I will give you the answers after each recording, and then we will check your answers together, and also I'll help you to count your score. All right, so let's get started. Ready?
You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a man inquiring in a tourist centre about activities suitable for families. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hi, can I help you?
I'd like to find out if you have any excursions suitable for families.
Sure. How about taking your family for a cruise? We have a steamship that takes passengers out several times a day. It's over 100 years old.
The cruise takes place on a steamship. So steamship has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hi, can I help you?
I'd like to find out if you have any excursions suitable for families.
Sure. How about taking your family for a cruise? We have a steamship that takes passengers out several times a day. It's over 100 years old.
That sounds interesting. How long is the trip?
About an hour and a half. And don't forget to take pictures of the mountains. They're all around you when you're on the boat and they look fantastic.
Okay. And I assume there's a cafe or something on board?
Sure. How old are your children?
My daughter's 15 and my son's 7.
Right. Well, there are various things you can do once you've crossed the lake to make a day of it. One thing that's very popular is a visit to the country farm. You're met off the boat by the farmer and he'll take you to the holding pens where the sheep are kept. Children love feeding them.
My son would love that. He really likes animals.
Well, there's also a 40-minute trek round the farm on a horse if he wants.
Do you think he'd manage it? He hasn't done that before.
Sure, it's suitable for complete beginners.
Good.
And again, visitors are welcome to explore the farm on their own, as long as they take care to close gates and so on. There are some very beautiful gardens along the side of the lake which also belong to the farm. They'll be just at their best now. You could easily spend an hour or 2 there.
Okay, well, that all sounds good. And can we get lunch there?
You can, and it's very good, though it's not included in the basic cost. You pay when you get there.
Right.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10.
Alright, so guys, now we're going to stop for a second. I understand that during the exam you won't stop, but this is something that I'd like to do so that it will be easier to check your answers and to count your score. Let's now check the answers together. And also, guys, make sure if you made a mistake, just take a mark that, oh, I made one mistake or two mistakes. So count your mistakes on our way of the practicing. So the first answer here is, so what are your answers, guys? So I think that everyone was typing, everyone was writing on the sheet of paper. Then you don't have to type your answers, it just will take a long time, it's okay. So let's just check your answers. So the first answer is mountains. And the answer would be correct only in case everything is correct. So spelling is correct and it should be mountains and not mountain. So the next answer, number 2, is horse. The third answer is garden. You also could have written the word garden. So both options work here, garden or gardens. And number 4 is lunch. All right, so these are the correct answers. I hope you did well. So check yourselves now, and if you made a mistake, just write it down somewhere. So write down the number of mistakes that you made here. So let me know, guys, in the chat box, how did you do? Did anyone make mistakes or everything was perfect? I hope it was perfect. And we're going to move on. So, ready? Let's continue.
To look at questions near the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
So, is there anything else to do over on that side of the lake?
Well, what you can do is take a bike over on the ship and then go on a cycling trip. There's a trail there called the Back Road. You could easily spend 3 or 4 hours exploring it, and the scenery's wonderful. They'll give you a map when you get your ticket for the cruise. There's no extra charge.
What's the trail like in terms of difficulty?
Quite challenging in places. It wouldn't be suitable for your 7-year-old. It needs someone who's got a bit more experience.
Well, my daughter loves cycling, and so do I, so maybe the 2 of us could go, and my wife and son could stay on the farm. That might work out quite well. But we don't have bikes here. Is there somewhere we could rent them?
Yes, there's a place here in the city. It's called Ratcheson's.
I'll just make a note of that. How do you spell it?
Ratchesons. It's just by the cruise ship terminal.
Okay.
You'd also need to pick up a repair kit for the bike from there to take along with you, and you'd need to take along a snack and some water. It'd be best to get those in the city.
Fine. That shouldn't be a problem. And I assume I can rent a helmet from the bike place.
Sure, you should definitely get that. It's a great ride, but you want to be well prepared because it's very remote. You won't see any shops round there or anywhere to stay, so you need to get back in time for the last boat.
Yeah. So what sort of prices are we looking at here?
Let's see. That'd be 1 adult and 1 child for the cruise with farm tour. That's $117, and an adult and a child for the cruise only, so that's $214 altogether. Oh, wait a minute. How old did you say your daughter was?
15.
Then I'm afraid it's $267 because she has to pay the adult fare, which is $75, instead of the child fare, which is $22. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So how do we find out?
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Alright, so this is the time you'll be given for checking your answers, and now let's check your answers together. So let's go. So the answer number 5 is map. Number 6 is experience. Number 7 is reticence. Check your spelling for this one. So number 8 is a helmet. Number 9, shops. And number 10 is $267. So these are the answers. How did you do? I hope that you did great. So I can see Victoria is typing her answers. That's great. All right. Hi, everyone. I can see your highs. Ramis, Maria, Erica, Alex, and one more guy, but the name is rather difficult for me. Farshad, Dmitry, Javid. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. All right, so I hope that you did well. And now we go to section number 2.
Section 2. You will hear a restaurant manager talking to a small group of new staff who are starting work as kitchen assistants in a restaurant. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Joy Parkins, and I'm the restaurant manager. And I understand that none of you have had any previous experience as kitchen assistants. Well, you might be feeling a bit nervous now, but most of our kitchen assistants say they enjoy the work. Okay, they might get shouted at sometimes, but it's nothing personal. And they're pleased that they have so many different things to do, which means they never get bored. And I'll tell you straight away that if you do well, we might think about moving you up and giving you some more responsibility. Right, well, you've all shown up on time, which is an excellent start. Now, I'm glad to see none of you have unsuitable footwear, so that's good. You need to be careful as the floors can get very wet and slippery. Those of you with long hair have got it well out of the way, but some of you'll need to remove your rings and bracelets. Just put them somewhere safe for today, and remember to leave them at home tomorrow, as they can be a safety hazard. Now, it's going to be a busy day for you all today. We don't have any tables free for this evening, and only a few for lunch. Fortunately, we've got our head chef back. He was away on holiday all last week, which meant the other chefs had extra work. Now, I'll tell you a bit more about the job in a minute, but first, some general regulations. For all of you, whatever your age, there's some equipment you mustn't use until you've been properly trained, like the waste disposal system, for example, for health and safety reasons. Then I think there are 2 of you here who are under 18. That's Emma and Jake, isn't it? Right, so for you 2, the meat slicer is out of bounds, and of course none of you are allowed to use the electric mixer until you've been shown how it works. Now, you may have heard that this can be a stressful job, and I have to say that can be true. You'll be working an 8-hour day for the first week, though you'll have the chance to do overtime after that as well if you want to. But however long the hours are, you'll get a break in the middle. What you will find is that you're on your feet all day long, lifting and carrying. So, if you're not fit now, you soon will be. You'll find you don't have much chance to take it easy. When someone tells you to do something, you need to do it straight away. But at least we do have a very efficient air conditioning system compared with some kitchens.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions.
Alright guys, so we're going now to check the answers. And I hope that you did well. And let's check them together. So 11, it's gonna be A. 12, it's also A. 13 is C. 14 is C. And 15 and 16, it's A and E. By the way, if you're going to write a paper-based IELTS, there will be separate places for question 15 and question 16. So sometimes it's a problem. So what you have to do though is 15 you write on A and 16 you write on E, or you can write down it in any order. So just one answer for one question. So it's strange, but it's confusing actually. So don't worry. 15A, 16E. How did you do? I hope that you did well. We're going to move on.
And 17
Straight away, but a system compared with
talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, let me tell you about some of the people you need to know. So, as I said, I'm Joy Parkins, and I decide who does what during the day and how long they work for. I'll be trying to get you to work with as many different people in the kitchen as possible, so that you learn while you're on the job. One person whose name you must remember is David Field. If you injure yourself at all, even if it's really minor, you must report to him, and he'll make sure the incident is recorded and you get the appropriate treatment. He's trained to give basic treatment to staff himself, or he'll send you off somewhere else if necessary. Then there's Dexter Wills. He's the person you need to see if you smash a plate or something like that. Don't just leave it and hope no one will notice. It's really important to get things noted and replaced, or there could be problems later. And finally, there's Mike Smith. He's the member of staff who takes care of all the stores of perishables. So, if you notice we're getting low in flour or sugar or something, make sure you let him know so he can put in an order. OK, now the next thing we need to cover.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Alright, so half a minute is over, and now we need to check your answers. So you can see that you have enough time for checking your answers. Make sure that maybe you will change your mind or try to concentrate, try to remember what was said. Maybe you will notice mistakes. Alright, so the answers. 17 is answer F. 18 is answer C. 19, it's gonna be D. And 20, I bet that you wrote B. So here are the correct answer. So guys, I hope that you did well. Don't forget to take notes on your incorrect answers. Just write down for you the number of the incorrect answers. So by the end of the section, we will try to count the score for you. Alright, so let's move on.
Section 3. You will hear two students called Trudy and Stuart, who are both studying to be librarians, discussing a paper that they are going to write together. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 23.
OK, Stuart, we need to start planning our paper on public libraries. Have you thought of an angle yet?
Well, there's so much we could look into. How libraries have changed over the centuries, for instance, or how different countries organise them. What do you think, Trudy?
Maybe we should concentrate on this country and try and relate the changes in libraries to external developments, like the fact that far more people can read than a century ago, and that the local population may speak lots of different languages.
We could include something about changes in the source of funding too.
Yes, but remember we're only supposed to write a short paper, so it's probably best if we don't go into funding in any detail.
Right. Well, shall we just brainstorm a few ideas to get started?
OK. We obviously need to look at the impact of new technology, particularly the internet. Now that lots of books have been digitalised, people can access them from their own computers at home.
And if everyone did that, libraries would be obsolete.
Yes.
But the digitalised books that are available online for free are mostly out of copyright, aren't they? And copyright in this country lasts for 70 years after the author dies. So you won't find the latest bestseller or up-to-date information.
That's an important point. Anyway, I find it hard to concentrate when I'm reading a long text on a screen. I'd much rather read a physical book. And it takes longer to read on a screen.
Oh, I prefer it. I suppose it's just a personal preference.
I expect the libraries will go on evolving in the next few years. Some have already become centres where community activities take place, like local clubs meeting there. I think that'll become even more common.
I'd like to think so. And that they'll still be serving their traditional function, but I'm not so sure. There are financial implications after all. What I'm afraid will happen is that books and magazines will all disappear and there'll just be rows and rows of computers. They won't look anything like the libraries we're used to.
Well, we'll see.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 24 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 24 to 30.
I've just had an idea. Why don't we make an in-depth study of our local public library as background to our paper?
Yes, that'd be interesting, and raise all sorts of issues. Let's make a list of possible things we could ask about, then work out some sort of structure. For instance, we could interview some of the staff and find out whether the library has its own budget or if that's controlled by the local council.
And what their policies are. I know they don't allow food, but I'd love to find out what types of noise they ban. There always seems to be a lot of talking, but never music. I don't know if that's a policy or it just happens.
I've often wondered. Then there are things like how the library is affected by employment laws. I suppose there are rules about working hours, facilities for staff and so on.
Right. Then there are other issues relating to the design of the building and how customers use it, like what measures does the library take to ensure their safety? They'd need floor coverings that aren't slippery, and emergency exits, for instance. Oh, and another thing, there's the question of the kind of insurance the library needs to have, in case anyone gets injured.
Yes, that's something else to find out. You know something I've often wondered?
What's that?
Well, you know they've got an archive of local newspapers going back years. Well, next to it, they've got the diary of a well-known politician from the late 19th century. I wonder why it's there. Do you know what his connection was with this area?
No idea. Let's add it to our list of things to find out. Oh, I've just thought, you know, people might ask in the library about local organisations, like sports clubs. Well, I wonder if they keep a database, or whether they just look online.
Right. I quite fancy finding out what the differences are between a library that's open to the public and one that's part of a museum, for example. They must be very different.
Then something else I'd like to know is...
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4.
Right, so before we turn to section 4, let's actually check your answers, guys. So the 21 answer is B. 22 answer is C. 23, the answer is also C. So make sure that you did it correctly. And let's go to these questions. So 24, the answer is budget. 25, the answer is employment. 26, the answer is safety. 27, the answer is insurance. 28, the answer is diary. 29, the answer is database. And 30, the answer is museum. By the way, the word insurance could be spelled with an I instead of E. It's also okay. It's the American spelling, especially typical for North America. It's alright. You can use both spellings, but choose one option, of course. So these are the correct answers, and I hope, guys, that you did well. And we have the final section here, and let's go to this section.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture for business students about business values. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In public discussion of business, we take certain values for granted. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 of them: collaboration, hard work, creativity, and excellence. Most people would say they're all good things. I'm going to suggest that's an oversimple view. The trouble with these values is that they're theoretical concepts, removed from the reality of day-to-day business. Pursue values by all means, but be prepared for what may happen as a result. They can actually cause damage, which is not at all the intention. Business leaders generally try to do the right thing, but all too often the right thing backfires if those leaders adopt values without understanding and managing the side effects that arise. The values can easily get in the way of what's actually intended. Okay, so the first value I'm going to discuss is collaboration. Let me give you an example. On a management training course I once attended, we were put into groups and had to construct a bridge across a stream, using building blocks that we were given. The rule was that everyone in the team had to move at least one building block during the construction. This was intended to encourage teamwork. But it was really a job best done by one person. The other teams tried to collaborate on building the structure and descended into confusion, with everyone getting in each other's way. Our team leader solved the challenge brilliantly. She simply asked everyone in the team to move a piece a few centimetres to comply with the rule, and then let the person in the team with an aptitude for puzzles like this build it alone. We finished before any other team. My point is that the task wasn't really suited to team working, so why make it one? Teamwork can also lead to inconsistency, a common cause of poor sales. In the case of a smartphone that a certain company launched, one director wanted to target the business market, and another demanded it was aimed at consumers. The company wanted both directors to be involved, so gave the product a consumer-friendly name, but marketed it to companies. The result was that it met the needs of neither group. It would have been better to let one director or the other have his way, not both. Now, industriousness, or hard work. It's easy to mock people who say they work hard. After all, a hamster running around in a wheel is working hard and getting nowhere. Of course, hard work is valuable, but only when properly targeted. Otherwise, it wastes the resources that companies value most, time and energy, and that's bad for the organisation. There's a management model that groups people according to 4 criteria: clever, hard-working, stupid, and lazy. Here, lazy means having a rational determination not to carry out unnecessary tasks. It doesn't mean trying to avoid work altogether. Most people display 2 of these characteristics, and the most valuable people are those who are both clever and lazy. They possess intellectual clarity and they don't rush into making decisions. They come up with solutions to save the time and energy spent by the stupid and hard-working group. Instead of throwing more man-hours at a problem, the clever and lazy group looks for a more effective solution. Next, we come to creativity. This often works well. Creating an attention-grabbing TV commercial, for example, might lead to increased sales. But it isn't always a good thing. Some advertising campaigns are remembered for their creativity without having any effect on sales. This happened a few years ago with the launch of a chocolate bar. Subsequent research showed that plenty of consumers remembered the adverts, but had no idea what was being advertised. The trouble is that the creator derives pleasure from coming up with the idea and wrongly assumes the audience for the campaign will share that feeling. A company that brings out thousands of new products may seem more creative than a company that only has a few, but it may be too creative and make smaller profits. Creativity needs to be targeted to solve a problem that the company has identified. Just coming up with more and more novel products isn't necessarily a good thing. And finally, excellence. We all know companies that claim they strive for excellence, but it takes a long time to achieve excellence. In business, being first with a product is more profitable than having the best product. A major study of company performance compared pioneers, that is, companies bringing out the first version of a particular product, with followers, the companies that copied and improved on that product. The study found that the pioneers commanded an average market share of 29%, while the followers achieved less than half that, only 13%, even though their product might have been better. Insisting on excellence in everything we do is time-consuming, wastes energy, and leads to losing out on opportunities. Sometimes second-rate work is more worthwhile than excellence. Make sure it's excellent sounds like a good approach to business, but the just get started approach is likely to be more successful.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
Alright, so we made it! My congratulations! I hope that you did well. So he said that you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers onto the answer sheet, but again a reminder, it's only if you're going to take paper-based IELTS. Alright, so let's actually check your answers. So our final section. So 31, the answer is damage. 32, the answer is side effects. Make sure that you spelled effects with an E at the very beginning because it's a noun, not a verb. So 33 is bridge. 34 is confusion. 35 is smartphone. 36 is resources. 37 is unnecessary. So you also can write not necessary. So unnecessary or not necessary, both work. 38, chocolate bar. Or 39 is problem. And the final answer, 44, is market share. So this is the end of the listening section. I hope that you are not too tired and you did well. So now actually we can count your score. So make sure that you counted your mistakes along the way. And if you're ready, let's actually take a look at your score now. So I just give you a few minutes that you count your mistakes. Alright guys, so here you can see the number of correct answers and the band score for these correct answers. So if you got 39 of 40 correct answers, your band score is 9. So 37, 38 is 8.5, 35, 36 is 8, 32, 33, 34, 7.5, and so on. So now you can count your score. And if you are not embarrassed, you can let me know your band score. I would be very happy to see it. So let me know what band score you got, if of course you want to. I guess no one wants to share their band score. Alright guys, so this brings us to the end of our lesson. If it happened that you didn't have enough time to count your score, you can watch the video one more time. You can watch the replay to this lesson. And that's it. So maybe it was very tiring or it seemed to be too long for the lesson, but this is the actual IELTS listening test, and I just wanted to make it as close to the real exam as possible so that you could feel what you need to expect on your IELTS. So I hope that it helped you. So just before we stop, I just want to give you some tips. So, of course, the more you practice, the better. You need to get used to the actual listening IELTS test. So that's why you need to go over as many practice tests as possible, but this is not the only thing that you need to do. So I think that it's important. So based from my experience and from my students, I see it all the time that many of my students just try, they grab lots of practice tests and they do all the practice tests all the time, but it's difficult for them and they don't understand what to do. So your preparation should be really balanced because, for example, you are used to the mode of the listening section, but you still lack vocabulary knowledge. So you listen and you don't know all these words. So that is why what I recommend is to have a really balanced preparation. So grab a book for the IELTS preparation, and by the way, I'm gonna leave some titles, some books that I use for my students while I'm preparing them for the IELTS, and you can find these books in the description below the replay to this webinar. So why I recommend using the books? Because they have a complex and balanced preparation, and when you just go through the book, you get prepared and you get ready in a balanced way. So you learn new words and it's organized in such a way that you remember new words and then you hear these words in listening. So don't just do practice tests all over and all over again. So I hope that you got what I wanted to say. Okay, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you did well, and if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet and you'd like to get notified of all our upcoming lessons, make sure to hit the subscribe button and a bell icon. Alright, I wish you have a great one, and oh, I forgot to tell you, if you want to study with us and if you want to prepare for the IELTS with us or maybe for the TOEFL with us, check out our website, losangeles.englishschool.com. You can study with us from any point of the world on Skype. Alright guys, love you, bye!